cross me light.
A voice that shook the world, but ended up handcuffed to a hospital bed with only 70 cents in her pocket. Billie Holiday, Lady Day, stood on the Cafe Society stage in 1939, singing Strange Fruit, a song that called out the lynching of black people, leaving audiences stunned. But it also put her in the FBI's crosshairs. She was a jazz icon, inspiring Frank Sinatra, selling millions of records. Yet she died alone at 44, accused of drug charges no one could prove. Who planted that white powder in her life? Did the FBI and her last husband, Louis McKay, scheme to silence her political voice, threatening letters, shadowy figures, and her final whisper, "They won't leave me alone"? Were they real or just hallucinations? Let's dive into the heartbreaking story of Billie Holiday, a star hunted for daring to sing for justice. Chapter 1. A start in poverty and abuse. Before she sang like an angel, Billie Holiday was locked in a dark room with her great-grandmother's cold body. She was only 6. The stench of death clung to the air. A faint light from a window slit fell on her relative's still face, while little Billie, curled up, tried to scream but could only gasp, her cries mixing with choked sobs. That cramped room felt like a coffin, squeezing her young heart. It was the first memory that shaped Eleanor Fagan, the girl who'd become Lady Day, born in 1915 in Philadelphia's Baltimore slums. Her mother, Sadie Fagan, just 19, was cast out by her family for an out-of-wedlock pregnancy. Her father, Clarence Holiday, a jazz musician, abandoned her to chase stage dreams. Sadie worked on railroads, leaving Billie with her cousin Ida. But Ida was no kind mother. She beat Billie, leaving bruises on her small body at 10. Billie was raped by a neighbor. No one believed her. They sent her away to a place called the House of the Good Shepherd, nothing but darkness. There, nuns called her a devil for her stubborn spirit. Once, as punishment, they locked her in a sealed room with another girl's body. The smell of death returned. Billie's breath seemed to stop, only her heart pounding in her chest. She screamed, but no one opened the door. In those dark days, Billie found light in music. Working at a Baltimore brothel, she stood by a phonograph, listening to Louis Armstrong and Bessie Smith. Their voices pulled her from the shadows. A friend recalled that 12-year-old Billie sang for a meal. The brothel's patrons stopped, tears streaming down their faces. Her young voice, though untrained, touched their hearts. At 12, Billie followed her mother to Harlem. But life didn't get easier. Both turned to prostitution to survive. At 14, Billie was arrested for soliciting. She spent 5 months in a workhouse on Welfare Island, in Harlem. A mysterious figure appeared, a man with a low-brimmed hat, silently watching from an alley whenever Billie left home. Not a thief, not a cop. A friend later whispered it might have been her first manager, scouting a rough diamond to exploit. Billie trembled, feeling those eyes always on her. Those years forged a Billie who was resilient yet fragile. She craved love but collected scars. Those wounds, like a curse, followed her for life. Harlem was still there, but that shadowy figure never gone. Did those childhood wounds set the stage for Billie's tragedy? Who was the man in the low-brimmed hat, always lurking in her life? Chapter 2, Strange Fruit, brought fame but so much more. She was only 17, a black girl at a microphone in a small Harlem club, smoke swirling around. When Billie Holiday sang, the room full of white patrons fell silent. Her voice, smooth as velvet, slow like a story, stunned producer John Hammond. But that same voice, years later, would catch the FBI's eye. Billie, or Lady Day, wasn't just a jazz singer, she was a flame, lighting up stages but burning those who wanted her quiet. In 1933, Billie recorded with Benny Goodman. Riffin' the Scotch sold 5,000 copies, a modest but promising start. By 1935, with pianist Teddy Wilson, she created what a little moonlight can do, a jazz standard. Billie didn't belt like singers of her time. She whispered through a Shure 730B microphone, shaping each note like a conversation with a friend. Her voice, though limited in range, was raw with emotion, making audiences hold their breath. But it was all a prelude to a song that changed everything. Strange Fruit. In 1939, at Cafe Society, New York's first integrated club, Billie took the stage. The crowd hushed, the lights dimmed, a single beam on her face. Strange Fruit, based on Abel Meeropol's poem, denounced lynchings in the South, cutting like a knife. Southern trees bear strange fruit. She sang, her voice trembling but sharp. The audience was choked up. Some cried, some looked away. The song sold over 1 million copies, called the Song of the Century by Time in 1999. A witness said Billie often left the stage with red eyes, the song stirring memories of her father, Clarence, denied hospital care in 1937 because of his race. But Strange Fruit wasn't just music. It was defiance. After each show, Billie received threatening letters signed powerful people. A friend said she kept them in a wooden box but couldn't bear to reopen it. Who sent those anonymous notes? The FBI began watching her, deeming the song a political threat. A Cafe Society witness said Billie once saw a ghostly figure in her dressing room mirror, making her tremble, whispering, "They don't want me singing this." After shows, she'd glance back as she left the stage. Once, she saw a man in a black hat leaning against a truck, silent, just watching. A friend later said it might have been an FBI agent or a manager trying to control her. Billie pressed on. She toured with Count Basie in 1937, then with Artie Shaw's White Band in 1938, facing racism, sleeping on buses, entering through kitchen doors. She wrote God Bless the Child after her mother refused her alone, hitting number 25 on the charts and selling over 1 million copies. But those watching eyes never left her. Was the FBI just monitoring or planning more each time Billie sang Strange Fruit? It felt like a noose tightening behind her neck. Did that song truly make her a target? Who was the man in the black hat by the truck? Silently watching her, Chapter 3, Suspicious Relationships Under the Name of Love. She sang of freedom, but backstage, her husband beat her until bones broke, then whispered to someone in the corner. The FBI called it necessary control. Billie Holiday, Lady Day, yearned for someone to love her truly, but those she trusted cut her deepest. And Louis McKay, her final husband, was the storm that dragged her into darkness, in smoky rooms, amid applause and stage lights. Billie fought not just addiction, but betrayal from those she held closest. Louis McKay entered her life in 1956, a mob enforcer with a charming smile. He promised to pull her from heroin, to bring her back to light, but behind closed doors, he was a nightmare. A friend said he once broke Billie's ribs before a show, forcing her to bandage up and perform. She sang God Bless the Child with trembling hands, hiding the pain. McKay didn't just abuse her. He pocketed her money, buying houses in his name alone. One night, Billie saw him whispering to a stranger outside, his voice cold like he was plotting. Was it the FBI? A friend said McKay took late-night calls, leaving venues during Billie's shows, as if reporting to someone. Before McKay, Billie endured toxic loves. Jimmy Monroe, her first husband in 1941, led her to opium. Joe Guy, her next lover, pushed her deeper into heroin. Both left scars, but none controlled her like McKay. Another romance, with actress Tallulah Bankhead, brought some light but was tangled. A love letter found after Billie's death revealed a passionate but forbidden bond. Tallulah helped Billie during her 1949 arrest, paying for a psychiatrist, but threatened to sue if Billie spoke of their relationship. Was Tallulah just a lover or sent to soothe Billie and keep her quiet? Each performance, Billie felt recorded. McKay never left the venue except for those phone calls. She grew suspicious. Once, when police searched her home, Billie, exhausted from being hunted, stripped naked before them. She stood bare, urinating on the floor, voice shaking. "What more do you want?" But they weren't after heroin. They wanted Billie Holiday to bow. Was McKay really an FBI insider? Who was the stranger he whispered to in the dark? Chapter 4: Judgment and Loneliness. Society turned its back. A glass bottle hit her shoulder. Hisses from a southern crowd cut like blades. Billie Holiday gripped her drink, threw it back, eyes blazing. That night, a newspaper called her a national threat. Billie, the jazz icon who silenced rooms with strange fruit, faced relentless judgment. As a black woman in the 1930s and 40s, she didn't just fight prejudice, she battled distant eyes watching, eager to choke her voice. The outside world was harsh. Jim Crow laws forced Billie through back doors, sleeping on buses, enduring scornful glares. One night in the South, a club owner pointed a gun, threatening her over strange fruit, the song against lynchings. "Don't sing that again," he growled. But Billie sang, her heart pounding. The press was merciless. A 1955 Jet article asked Billie Holiday genius or criminal. They called her a bad girl, ignoring the notes she wrote with blood and tears. Inside, Billie was breaking. In Lady Sings the Blues, she wrote, "I never felt I belonged anywhere." One night, after a show, she sat alone in her dressing room, crying. "They see me as a wild animal," she told a friend. Voice choked. The FBI made it worse. They watched her over strange fruit, labeling her a political threat. Once, she opened her motel window and saw a shadow vanish behind a tree. Friends said she was imagining it, but that day, an FBI report noted subject still active. Footsteps echoed outside her window nightly. One night, a light flashed outside, and Billie whispered, "They don't want me to live in peace." Were those footsteps real, or did the FBI stage them to unravel her? The world kept attacking. A patron once threw a bottle at her for her race, and Billie hurled a glass back, voice trembling. "What do you want from me but inside?" She was shattered. She turned to liquor, to heroin, to forget the judging eyes. A friend said Billie often sat in a smoky room, staring out the window as if waiting. She said, "I just want to be loved, but they want me to fall." Loneliness trapped her like a wall with no exit. The footsteps kept coming each night. In her dim room, Billie lit a cigarette, looked out the window, and wasn't sure she was still alive. Who was behind those shadows by the tree? Did the FBI just watch, or were they determined to silence Billie's voice forever? Chapter 5: Addiction and Entrapment. A voice that once moved Carnegie Hall was jailed for a packet of white powder. But who put it there? Billie Holiday, Lady Day. Once stood at the top, now dragged to the depths by drugs and those who wanted her quiet. In 1947, police stormed her home, hauling her away in handcuffs. She stood in court, eyes clouded, saying, "I didn't do anything wrong." No one listened. She spent 9 months in a West Virginia federal prison, its cold walls seeming to swallow her voice. Out of prison, Billie lost her New York cabaret license. She could no longer sing in the smoky clubs where she'd left audiences speechless. But she didn't quit. In 1948, she took the Carnegie Hall stage. The crowd stood, clapping wildly. Billie sang, her voice hoarse but her heart ablaze. A friend said she gripped the microphone, whispering to herself, "They can't take it all." But her eyes held fear, as if she knew someone was lurking. She kept performing, but everywhere she went, a shadow went first. One night, through a motel room door crack, Billie saw a man in a trench coat hand her lover, Joe Guy, a small package. He turned, looked at her. No words, just a faint smile like everything was set. Another time, in a smoky studio, she glanced back and saw a man among the technicians, his eyes cold. Who was behind those packets of white powder? In 1956, her autobiography Lady Sings the Blues and its album reminded the world of Billie. But liquor and heroin had drained her. She stood before a mirror, muttering, "I don't recognize myself anymore." Drugs weren't just addiction. A friend said Billie once whispered, "Someone's waiting for me to fall." A witness claimed the FBI, led by Harry Anslinger, let drugs reach her, a trap to destroy the political voice of strange fruit. Was it true or just the fear of a woman pushed to the edge? Billie fought, but she grew weaker. A small, nameless packet of white powder. It could kill a movement. Who placed it in Billie's life? Did the FBI really use drugs to silence her? Chapter 6, a tragic death alone on a hospital bed. On her hospital bed, she weighed just 99 pounds, a great diva now handcuffed for a crime no one proved. In 1959, Billie Holiday lay in New York's Metropolitan Hospital, her body ravaged by cirrhosis. The monitor's slow beeps matched her fading heartbeat. A weak light from the window fell on her face. Billie opened her eyes slightly, tried to lift her hand and felt cold metal on her left wrist. Police burst in, accusing her of drug possession. Though her purse held only 70 cents and $750 tucked away from a tabloid interview, a nurse said Billie murmured, "God bless the child," her voice faint as a breeze, as if music was her last refuge. Frank Sinatra visited, holding her hand, in a memory. She whispered, "I just taught you how to shape a note." "Frankie." She smiled, then closed her eyes for the last time. But the injustice didn't stop. A friend said the FBI ordered her methadone treatment halted, as if pushing her toward death. Louis McKay, her final husband, abandoned her, pocketing her money, and buried her beside her mother without a headstone. Over 3,000 attended her funeral at St. Paul's Church, but Billie left this world alone. A witness said she opened her eyes, trembling. "Who is standing there?" she whispered, staring at an empty corner. Or was it empty? A friend said Billie had seen a shadowy figure in her hospital room, its eyes saying, "You won't escape." Her final words rang out, "They won't leave me alone, even now." Was it the hallucination of a dying woman, or a sign of those who hunted her to the end? On July 17th, 1959, Billie left the world at 44. 3,000 mourned, but no one knew she lay without a headstone. Who stood in that hospital room corner? Did the FBI and McKay truly resolve to extinguish Billie's light? Conclusion: an immortal legacy and an unsolved mystery. Billie Holiday was light and shadow. In the light, she left an eternal legacy. Strange Fruit broke the silence like a curse, named the song of the century by Time. God Bless the Child and other recordings sold over 1 million copies, earning 23 posthumous Grammys. Billie inspired Ella Fitzgerald, Nina Simone, and Amy Winehouse, becoming a civil rights icon. She was honored in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2000, the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, and in the film The United States vs. Billie Holiday. An unreleased Harlem recording found in 2020 sold at auction for millions, reviving Lady Day's legend. But darkness cloaks her story. The threatening letters after Strange Fruit, footsteps outside her window, the figure in her hospital room, and her final whisper. They won't leave me alone. Who sent those letters? Who slipped her the white powder? Who stopped her methadone? Hastening her death, a friend said Louis McKay whispered to strangers, as if following a plan. The FBI, under Harry Anslinger, watched her over Strange Fruit. But did they go further, using drugs to crush a political voice? Or was it just the fears of a woman trapped by addiction and betrayal? Picture Billie in that dim hospital room, light falling on her face, handcuffs gleamed. But God Bless the Child echoed in her mind, a defiant proclamation. She's gone. But her music lives. The FBI's file on Billie Holiday still not fully declassified. And in that hospital room, that shadowy figure still nameless. What do you think? Was Strange Fruit a protest or a death sentence? Drop an emoji if you believe Billie never got justice. Share in the comments which Billie song moves you most. Who were the shadows in her life?